The past 2 weeks at the Wildlife Homestead have been some of the busiest and most exciting I've had here, all thanks to these 5 adorable red fox kits that moved in under my garage. A lot has happened to get to this moment, so let's go back to before these foxes first arrived. When we first moved here, I mentioned that growing up, I used to watch a family of red foxes that lived behind our house. We spent years watching these foxes from our backyard, and ever since it's been a dream of mine to have them on my future property. So late this winter, I started scouring our new land looking for any active fox dens. Because the tracks in the dirt from inside of the hole stand out well against the snow, this is one of the easier times of the year to find active dens. But after a lot of searching, I came to the conclusion that there weren't any on our land. I was, however, seeing adult red foxes every day right across the street on the neighbor's lot, so that's where I suspected they had at least one of their dens. But as the snow began to melt and spring began to set in, I started seeing less of the foxes. We didn't see them for a few days, which turned into a few weeks, and eventually it was over a month without a sighting. Even our trail cameras would only pick up the odd clip of one now and again, but that's until one evening when I finally saw one of the adult foxes on the road. It seemed a little more alert and on edge than usual, and that's when I noticed a fox kid pop out right under our lilac tree. One by one, the other kids started coming out and roaming around until I counted 5 of them around the house. I was unsure of how long they'd be here, so I just soaked in the sighting as much as I could. I watched them run around and play well into the night. Even when it was dark, I could just faintly see them running under the light of the garage. I honestly thought this was going to be a one-time thing, but the next morning, to my surprise, they were still there. Some of the kits were right outside of our driveway, and the others were out by the garage. The adults are trying to enjoy the first rays of sun, but at this time of the year, they really don't get a second to themselves. As you can see, the kits were full of energy, often chasing the parents around and wrestling with their siblings. Not only is this entertainment for them, but play fighting is also a crucial part of their development. It helps them develop their muscles while improving their balance, agility, coordination, and reflexes. It also helps them learn social skills, and most importantly, they get to practice predatory behaviors like stalking, pouncing, and capturing prey. The adults will also teach the young how to scavenge and look for food. I saw one pull out a leg from a carcass that was in the ditch. I wasn't sure which animal it was until I saw this little pup on the left happily drag off a raccoon head into the road. I'll admit it was a little nerve-wracking watching them run into the middle of the road like this, but luckily we live in a more secluded area, and the parents have also been really good at teaching the young how to hide in the ditches well before any of the cars pass by. In addition to being weary of moving vehicles, they were also weary of me. Even though I was inside the house, if I moved too quickly or made a noise, it would stare me down through the window. You can see this one just doesn't break eye contact, and after a bit of time, they usually just take the kits and move further up the road. I'm guessing they don't see a lot of people out here, so I always had to make sure to be still whenever they were around. Over the next 3 days, I watched the family of foxes from our living room window. Little by little, both parents would leave the young for longer periods of time as they went out to hunt and collect food. They worked tirelessly to keep all the kits well fed. It makes you wonder how they find time to keep themselves fed. Right now, their main food source is rodents, and wow, these adults are a vole's worst nightmare. They move around using their sense of smell to locate the area where the voles are hiding. Then using their excellent hearing, they listen for the vole's movement or excessive chewing to silently stalk to its position before pouncing and landing on the vole with its forepaws. And I love seeing this hunting technique because it puts in practice many of the important skills that the kids are learning while play fighting. Every time the parents would come back with a mouthful, they'd try to give a vole to each kit. One time I did manage to capture this greedy little bandit stealing the entire mouthful from the mother, taking off and then hiding in our front yard. It just sat there and gorged itself, vole after vole after vole, until it couldn't eat anymore. It cached the last one in the grass for later, and the other siblings came sniffing around trying to figure out where all the food went. That's why it's important to be one of the first ones to the adults when they're back from a hunt. To this point, all the footage that I've taken has been from inside of the house, and I was fine with keeping it that way because it doesn't disturb the foxes. They would mostly stay in the front yard, so anytime I wanted to go out, I'd just sneak out the back door so I wouldn't disturb them. But as the parents started leaving the young more often, they started to explore more of the area, and it wasn't long before they made our garage their new home. So back here is where all the red fox kits are hanging out when the parents aren't around. If you look under our shed over here, you can see this gap underneath, and this is where they've been squeezing through, and they'll sleep under there. If it's too warm, they'll also go there just to rest and cool off. Actually, there's some fox scat right there. And yeah, this is a great setup. So they'll run around the entire garage, they'll play. There's a feeder up front too that they go underneath. They clean up any seeds or peanuts that the birds left. The one problem though with this setup is that every time I come outside, they're right here and they take off in every direction. And sometimes they run blindly across the street. And even though there's not that many cars around here, it is still pretty dangerous. So I decided the best course of action would be to get them a little more comfortable with seeing me around. I didn't want to start hand feeding them or anything. The last thing I want is for these foxes to start going up to people for handouts. So I started sitting outside for a few hours every day in hopes of the young getting bored of seeing me and just thinking I'm a part of the landscape. The first few days of sitting outside were really slow. They mostly hid and kept their distance. Luckily, there were other things around for me to stay occupied with while I waited. I watched this tree swallow pair continuously feed their hungry nestlings. They took up residence here at the beginning of the season, so it's nice to see them having success as the first pair in this new box. And to my surprise, while I was waiting for foxes, we also had a bluebird pair start to use one of the other boxes. We hadn't seen bluebirds since early migration, and they're starting this nest a little later, so I'm guessing they came from another property where their first clutch was likely unsuccessful. Once they lay their first eggs, they become very secretive, but during the nest building stage, I was able to watch them while they brought in material, or at least attempted to. I also spent some time listening and watching the green frogs at the pond up front, where many large adults have moved in and started breeding. After a few days, I wasn't having much success. The kits would still stare at me unsure, then they'd stare at me some more, but every time they'd turn around and hide. Although it didn't seem like I was making any progress, each visit they spent a little more time watching me than the last. On one of the days, I was filming a pup picking at the rest of the raccoon carcass. At one point, the rain started picking up and this kid turned around and started heading right towards the protection of the garage behind me. Usually at this distance, they would see me, stop, and head the other way, but this one just kept coming until it got so close that my camera couldn't even focus anymore. It walked right by me and took shelter underneath the garage, and finally, that was the first moment where it seemed like one of them felt comfortable with me being around. I sat outside until the rain slowed down and the fox made its way back out, and just like earlier, was fine with me being there. One thing that I had in my favor was that fox kits are naturally curious and tend to take cues from their siblings really well. So once one of them accepted me, the others quickly followed, and I was able to spend the next week filming them around the garage. Don't get me wrong, they're still weary of me. It's not like I can just run around or make a lot of noise, but it's a big improvement over a week ago when I couldn't even step outside without them running off. Now they've become a part of my daily routine. I respect their distance and they respect mine, and I get to watch them as they continue to grow. They recently started venturing off further with their parents and joining them on some hunts. I'm not sure how long they'll stick around, but so far, these moments with the red foxes have been some of my best here. And maybe this time next year we'll see one of these kits with a family of their own running around on the Wildlife Homestead.